Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and in this episode we're going to make this three-dimensional fall theme sign, and we're going to get right to it. Now, like a lot of projects, you don't have a clear direction of exactly what you're going to do right at the beginning, but I knew I at least wanted to have the general elements of a fall sign, pumpkins, leaves, that sort of thing. So, starting with that, I enabled the help of some AI. Love it or hate it, but I've grown to kind of like it a little bit for helping create some elements. And so what I first did is I just created a pumpkin and of course it took a lot of iterations to get the one I liked, but here's the one I settled on. And then I also wanted some leaves, so I just wanted some generic leaves. And so these are the ones that I settled on. And once I got those images, I just traced them using, and I like to use CorelDRAW. A lot of you like to use other programs. This is the one I've been using for a long time, and I'm fairly proficient at it now. So I use the trace function within Corel. I'm not going to go into all those details of it now. It's not the scope of this video, but just suffice it to say that I ended up with some clean vectors because I didn't want raster images, I wanted vector images. And here's what I ended up with. So you can see there, nice clean lines, not many nodes, overall pretty good. And then I just wanted some outlines for leaves, and those are the ones I ended up with. And after I got those, I turned it into a little more proper of an element. So this is what I ended up with after that. I combined the pumpkins into three. I duplicated them, made some changes so they didn't look identical, and then went ahead and added leaves in, used some Boolean functions, to where, well, in this case, I didn't, but I did in a later version, and I'll show that in just a second. But I just wanted to place these around till I kind of liked what I found, and then graduated to this next version, which is this guy right here. And this is where I used Boolean functions to subtract, whittle away at all the various pieces, but still using all vector lines and arcs so that we get really clean cuts. So after I did that, I decided I wanted this all on an oval background. And that's what you're seeing right here, is the oval background. And then on top of that, I wanted to have some acrylic. So that's what this rectangle you see here is, a piece of clear acrylic. And of course, some lettering on top of that, which is also a white acrylic. And these circles here represent where I have standoffs. And so I went ahead and just tried to work smarter, not harder, and I put holes in my sign, my sign pieces, so that I could let the laser do the work. That's a little rogue element. I don't know what that guy's doing, but I ended up cutting this guy out of acrylic and cutting all the holes out. The blue line there is a score line, so that when I put my letters on there, I can just line those right up. And here is my backer. I used 1/2" plywood for that. And all these lines are score lines, so I can line up all my elements. And the green lines are just to give that an effect of like there's panels behind there, just to add another level of visual interest. Right, after I was happy with all that, I pushed various bits of it over into Lightburn and started working with it from there. And don't get too hung up on the various colors here. They all ended up essentially being a cutout at this stage. And just to go over kind of the philosophy of how I did this. So the way I made these is, this was out of a sheet of 1/4" plywood, and then the idea was I would cut all those out, and then I used MDF to add another layer on top of that. So that what I did was, where all these cutout pieces came out, I then glued together MDF on top of that, and that was to give a nice healthy thickness to the various pieces of the pumpkin. And so once that was taken care of, I went ahead and cut all these pieces, and for this I chose to just use a 1/4 inch MDF by itself, and that gives just a nice a difference in the depth, once the sign is put together. And of course I nested all these together. I'm not going to go into the details of all that, but I just ended up just grabbing these and kind of sticking them all together till I got them to the way I like them. And after that, we move on to actually making some sawdust. Let's get into that next. All right, so now we're actually making some parts, and here we've started gluing them together. We're just gluing the MDF to the plywood. And this process just takes a while. You just piece by piece, over and over. You can see over there to the right, I have already painted I want to call it the boundary for the pumpkin, or the divider lines, if you will. So that's kind of the container that's going to hold all those pieces together. And once we get all these pieces, we can move on to shaping them. Moving on to shaping. So here I am using my Dremel with a metallic shaper bit, and starting off we just go around the whole periphery, and we just want to blend those edges real nice. And once we're done with that, you can also add some kind of cool features kind of to the field of it there if you want. I chose to on several of the pieces, and again, that's just to make it more interesting, so it gives some further dimension to the pieces, not just where it's cut out, but to the center of it too. And it just adds more interest for places for the light to catch, and just something to just up the game of this whole thing. And we're aiming for kind of a really quality high-end piece here, and this is one way to get there. Okay, we're now moving on to sanding. Again, using the Dremel, and this time using a little flapper disc, which I believe is 120 grit. And this is to just further smooth out those edges. Using that metallic tool, it makes little chatter marks and stuff, and so this is to help smooth those bits and pieces out. Another way to go about this is with your random orbital sander. It might be a little big to get into there to some of the smaller pieces, so that's why the smaller tool is ideal for something like this. You can also do it by hand. That's the MDF is not terrible to sand by hand. It just takes a little longer, but you can get there too. Okay, next up, we are going to test fit those pieces just to make sure everything's going good. There's really no reason they shouldn't fit because they came out of there, but I just want to see how they fit. And so far it's looking pretty good. I'm liking how this is going so far. So as I went about this, I found that I liked using my angle grinder with a sanding disc better than the Dremel. So that's what I continued using throughout the duration of this project. And I was surprised at how well I could kind of get into the various nooks and crannies really quite readily with that. And then I went ahead and drew shapes on the various pieces, and that helped me follow the lines a little better, follow the contours, and just produce an overall better product. And once everything was shaped and sanded, it's time to move on to priming and painting. And here we are, just getting everything ready to go. As soon as we're done here, we're going to start the priming process. Alright, so once I started priming, this is where I started to have little issues. And based on research I found, I wanted to use a automotive based primer, a filler primer, that would help fill any little voids and stuff. And what I found was, as I sprayed it, it produced a whole lot of little nibs and bumps and stuff all over. And to be honest, I'm not sure exactly where I went awry on this whole thing. I think I was too far away when I was spraying it, and it started to dry as it was going onto the surface. And so it forced me to just do a couple of coats of primer. So I ended up just leaving that first coat, sanding it all down. Didn't take it clear down to bare material, but at least got it smooth again, and then just shot another coat of primer and then proceeded into full-on painting. Alright, so here I'm showing everything that I've done as far as painting goes, and I didn't capture the in-process painting parts. This is just showing all the various pieces that I did paint. The pumpkin, the borders, the leaves, all those various pieces, and how they turned out. And overall, I'm really pretty happy with what I ended up with, even with that primer issue not really working in my favor at the beginning, but it turned out okay. And next up is cutting out our oval backer. Right now it's doing the score lines, and then it's going to move on to the outer periphery cut. Pretty simple stuff. Alright, now with our backer board cut, we're ready to move on to assembling parts. In this case, I'm adding the pumpkin boundary, and I'm adhering it with E6000. And here's where those score lines are handy for making sure everything lines up nice. Now, with that assembled, we can start grabbing pieces and just start assembling them in the pockets where they go. And this is where it really starts to come together pretty quick after that. every so often you find pieces that still need to be hand worked a little bit, and here I am using the right angle grinder with the sanding disc and just getting it to fit into place just like I like it.
There you go. That's my guy. We're almost done now with our pumpkin. Let's see. Last piece.
Final piece.
Yay! And that's it.
Next up is processing the acrylic. I had already went ahead and cut that, and now I'm just weeding away the masking so that we can go ahead and bond them together. Alright, so we got all the letters cut out in acrylic and the base plate for the letters. You may wonder why I cut the top masking paper just to take it all off again. Well, and the point of that is so you can see there I've got lines there, and that's so I can just line these up perfectly. You know, you could also make a template that goes over the top of it, but this is free. It just, you know, takes a little extra time to weed all that paper off, but then I can line this stuff up and not worry about it being off. Next step is to go ahead and adhere these, and I'm going to use, essentially this is MEK is what this is, and a little applicator tip, the syringe needle kind of going on there. And the way you do that is you set this on here, and then you apply this, and it will wick underneath there. And I'll be honest, this is my first time doing it. I watched the process, but this is my first attempt at it. Man, I can't even tell if it's coming out or not. I think it is. I think this is a less is more approach. Got the final tidbits to put on this sign, and we're almost done. So right now, I'm going to be putting on the standoffs here. These are a 1-inch aluminum standoff, and I'm using a number 8 screw to secure them down to the base sign there. So overall, this was a really fulfilling and challenging project, one that I had wanted to set off on for a while now and just had decided what I wanted to make. But this was a great opportunity to combine a lot of elements, use some techniques I hadn't done before, and combine materials. And I really hope you enjoyed this and found some helpful tidbits along the way and was informational. Thanks for watching.